Right now, somewhere on Earth, a baby deer is being born, and within about an hour it will stand up on its own four legs, wobble for a moment, and then walk. A newborn wildebeest can run from a lion within minutes of being born. A baby whale swims the instant it arrives. A baby snake slithers off completely alone and never sees its parents again. And then there is the human baby. Place a newborn human on the ground and it can do precisely nothing. It cannot walk. It cannot crawl. It cannot roll over. It cannot lift its own head. It cannot even see you properly. It is, by an enormous margin, the most helpless, most useless newborn produced by any large animal on the entire planet. And that is deeply, deeply strange. Because here's what makes no sense at all. We are the smartest, most powerful, most dominant species in the history of life on Earth. We build cities and rockets and, well, this video, and yet we produce the single most pathetic, defenseless, do-nothing babies in the animal kingdom. A baby that would not survive a single day on its own. Think about how backwards that is. The most successful animal alive gives birth to the most useless offspring alive. That should be a fatal weakness. It should have gotten us wiped out. Instead, it turned out to be one of the greatest secrets of our success, hiding in plain sight inside every nursery on the planet. So why are human babies born so uselessly, hopelessly helpless? Stay with me, because the answer flips everything you think about weakness completely upside down. Let us be honest about just how useless we are talking, because it is almost comical. A newborn human cannot hold up its own head, that giant, heavy head, for months. It cannot sit. It cannot reach out and grab something on purpose. Its eyes can barely focus past the distance to a parent's face. It cannot regulate its own body temperature properly. It cannot feed itself, cannot move itself, cannot protect itself, cannot do a single useful thing in its own defense. For months, its entire repertoire of skills consists of two things: crying and being carried. That is it. A creature so helpless that if the adults around it simply walked away, it would be dead within a day. No other big animal on Earth is born this broken, and it does not get better quickly either. Watch a human baby's first year, and it is a painfully slow unlocking of the most basic abilities imaginable. For the first couple of months, it mostly just lies there. Around 4 months, it might manage to roll over. A monumental achievement. Around 6 months propped up, it can finally sit. Somewhere near 9 months, it begins to crawl, at last able to drag itself across a room. And only around its first birthday, give or take, does it haul itself upright and take those first wobbly steps. The exact thing a foal did within 60 minutes of being born. A human takes roughly an entire year just to reach the starting line that most animals are born already standing on. And walking, believe me, is the easy part. And the contrast with the rest of the animal kingdom is brutal. Most animals are what scientists call precocial, born ready. A foal, a calf, a piglet, a duckling, they arrive with their eyes open, their bodies working, and their survival software already installed. A baby wildebeest on the Serengeti has to be able to stand and run within minutes because a predator is quite literally waiting to eat the slow ones. Ducklings hatch, look around, and follow their mother into the water to swim on day 1. These animals are not taught how to survive. They are born knowing. And then there is our baby, who cannot find its own thumb. In fact, to really feel how far to one end of the scale we are, look at the opposite extreme, because nature built it too. There is a bird in Australia called the megapode. Its chick hatches underground, completely alone, and then does something astonishing. It digs its own way up through the earth, climbs out into the world, and within hours it can run. Within a day or two, it can fly. It never meets its parents. It never needs them. It is born a fully functional, self-sufficient animal. That chick and the human baby are the two farthest opposite ends of one spectrum, and we are sitting all the way down at the helpless end, alone, further out than almost anything else alive. So here's my first question, and I really want the answer below. How old were you when you took your first steps? When did you say your first word? Were you an early walker, or did you take your sweet time? Go ask whoever raised you, because every one of us spent years as a completely helpless little passenger before we became the person watching this. Drop your first steps age in the comments and hold on to it, because by the end of this, you are going to understand why that long, slow, helpless start might be the most important thing that ever happened to your brain. Now, why are we like this? The first piece of the answer, you might already know if you saw the last video, and it is the obstetric dilemma. We walk upright, which gave us a narrow pelvis, and we grew enormous brains, which gave our babies enormous heads. And a big head cannot fit through a narrow birth canal. So evolution's brutal compromise was to eject the baby early, while its head is still just barely small enough to be born. In a very real sense, every human baby is born premature. If we gestated like a proper primate our size, pregnancy might last closer to a year and a half, so the baby arrives half-built and finishes the job on the outside. But that is only the beginning of the story. Because here's the genuinely weird part. We were not always like this. Our primate ancestors had relatively capable babies. A baby monkey is born with its eyes working, and it can cling to its mother and hold on almost immediately. So we did not simply stay helpless. We actually reversed, evolving backward toward helplessness. Scientists have a name for this rare and peculiar state. Secondarily altricial. It means we come from a line of born-ready babies, and then, uniquely, we became helpless again. Something about becoming human was so powerful that it was worth throwing away the ability to be born ready at all. And to see what that something was, we have to look inside the skull. Look at the numbers, and the whole thing starts to click. A newborn chimpanzee is born with a brain about 40% of its adult size. A newborn human? Only about 25%. Think about what that means. 3/4 of your brain, the most important, most complex object in the known universe, was built after you were born. Out here, in the open air, exposed to the world, to faces, to voices, to language, to everything. Every other animal does the bulk of its brain building safely sealed inside the womb. We do most of ours outside. And that single fact, that a human brain is finished out in the world instead of inside the body, is the key that unlocks the entire mystery. So put it together. We are born early, half-finished, and helpless, and then we do the most important construction of our entire lives, the wiring of the human mind, out in the open where anything could go wrong. On the face of it, that sounds insane. It sounds like the worst, most dangerous design imaginable. Why would evolution take the most precious thing we own, the brain, and finish building it in the one place it is most exposed and most at risk? There has to be something we are getting in return, something so valuable it is worth all of this helplessness and all of this danger. And there is. It is the whole reason you are the way you are. Here it is. A brain that finishes building itself inside the womb can only be wired for one thing, the past. It can only be pre-programmed with instincts, fixed responses baked in before the animal has seen a single thing about the actual world it will live in. That is why a baby wildebeest can run on day one, but it will also, forever, only ever be a wildebeest, running the same ancient program its ancestors ran. But a brain that finishes building itself out here, in the real world, gets to be wired by that world. By the specific language your parents speak, by the specific faces, the specific culture, the specific everything you happen to be born into. The human baby is helpless because its brain arrived deliberately unfinished, a blank, hungry, wide-open learning machine, waiting to be shaped by reality itself. We did not trade away readiness for nothing. We traded it for the single most powerful thing in the living world, the ability to learn anything. Now you might be thinking, surely something out there is even more helpless than a human baby. And you would be right, but the exception proves the point perfectly. A newborn kangaroo is almost unimaginably helpless. It is born as a pink, blind, jelly bean-sized embryo, so undeveloped it barely looks like an animal at all. But here's the crucial difference. That tiny joey immediately crawls into its mother's pouch and finishes developing in there, sealed away in what is essentially a second womb, safe and hidden from the world. So yes, the joey is born earlier and more helpless than we are. But it does its growing, tucked safely inside. We do ours out in the open, and that is the whole difference. The joey, finishing in the dark of its pouch, will only ever be a kangaroo. Our baby, finishing out in the world, can become almost anything that world contains. And if that just turned weakness into superpower in your head, that is exactly what this channel does. We take the thing about you that looks most like a flaw, and we show you it was the whole point all along. So subscribe, because this open, unfinished, endlessly learning brain came with a set of side effects, and they are some of the strangest and most human things about you, from why babies are so unbearably cute, to why one particular sound is impossible for your brain to ignore. Let us sit with what that open brain actually buys us, because it is staggering. A human baby can be born anywhere on Earth, into any of thousands of languages, any climate, any culture, and it will absorb it, effortlessly, and become a native. A baby born today could just as easily master a language that is 10,000 years old or an app that was invented last week. That flexibility, that bottomless capacity to soak up whatever world you are dropped into is called plasticity, and no other animal has it at anything close to our level. And it comes at a price, the price of being born helpless, with the wiring left open. The uselessness and the genius are the exact same thing. seen from two different angles. And this open brain does its most breathtaking learning early, during special windows when it is at its most moldable. It is why a young child can soak up 2 or 3 languages at once, effortlessly with a flawless accent, while an adult sweats over a single one for years and still sounds foreign. It is why the sights, the sounds, and the people of your earliest years wire themselves so deeply into who you become. For a few precious years, the human brain is a sponge unlike anything else in nature, physically rewiring itself to match the exact world it finds around it. And that sponge is only possible because the brain arrived unfinished. The price of arriving unfinished is arriving helpless. You cannot have one without the other. And here's a beautiful detail that connects straight back to another strange thing about us. Look at a baby monkey and it does one thing brilliantly. It grips. It clings to its mother's fur and holds on tight while she climbs and travels, hands free. A human baby is actually born with a ghost of that same reflex. Press a finger into a newborn's palm and it will grip it with surprising strength. A leftover instinct for holding onto a mother who no longer has any fur to hold. Because we lost our coat, our babies have nothing to cling to. So a human infant cannot ride along hanging from its mother. It has to be actively carried in someone's arms, which means those arms are busy, which means, once again, our helpless baby quietly forces the people around it to work together. Now, a baby this helpless has a serious problem to solve. It demands years of exhausting, round-the-clock care from adults who could, in theory, simply give up and walk away. So evolution built the baby a weapon, and it is aimed directly at your brain. Cuteness. It is not an accident that babies look the way they do. That huge head, those enormous eyes low on the face, the round cheeks, the tiny nose, the chubby little limbs, scientists call it the baby schema, and it acts like a key that fits a lock inside the adult mind. When you see it, your brain floods with the urge to protect and to care, whether you want to or not. The baby cannot fight, cannot flee, cannot help, so instead, it hacks you. It is so helpless it had to evolve the power to melt the hearts of anyone who looks at it, and it has one more tool, the only active weapon in its whole arsenal. The cry. A baby cannot tell you what is wrong, so the human infant cry evolved into something acoustically engineered to be almost impossible for an adult brain to tune out. It hits a pitch and a pattern that drills straight past your patience and lights up the alarm centers of your brain, filling you with an urgent, itching need to make it stop. That is not a flaw in the sound. That is the entire design. It is the desperate broadcast of an animal that can do nothing else. And it works, because for 2 million years, the adults who could not ignore it are the ones whose babies survived. Quick question, and be honest. Does the sound of a baby crying, even a stranger's baby, on a plane, in a shop, make you tense up a little, even if you have no children of your own? Almost everyone feels it, and now you know it is not a personal failing. It is 2 million years of evolution reaching directly into your nervous system. Tell me in the comments whether a crying baby gets to you. I am genuinely curious how universal it is. Alright, all of this helplessness has a cost, and it is enormous. Because a baby this useless is astronomically expensive. We are not talking about a few weeks of care, like most animals. We are talking about years. Years of carrying, feeding, protecting, and teaching. A creature that contributes nothing to its own survival for a very long time. No other animal on Earth invests this much, for this long, in a single child. And it is dangerous, too, for everyone. A helpless baby is a heavy, demanding, vulnerable burden dragged through a hard and hungry world. On paper, this is a catastrophe of a strategy. So how on earth did we ever pay for it? The answer is that we did not pay for it alone. Because a single exhausted parent holding a baby that cannot be put down and cannot survive unattended simply cannot manage on their own. The mother's hands are full. She cannot forage enough food for 2, stay alert for danger, and care for a helpless infant all at once. Not reliably, not for years. The math does not work for one person, and so our uselessly helpless baby did something no other animal's baby has ever done. It reached out beyond its mother and pulled an entire network of other people into the job of keeping it alive. The helpless human infant is, quietly, one of the most powerful social forces our species has ever known. Look at what it dragged into existence. In most mammal species, the father vanishes the instant mating is over and plays no part in raising the young. But a human baby is so demanding that, unusually for a mammal, human fathers were pulled in to help provide and protect. The sheer weight of raising a helpless child helped forge the lasting bonds between parents that shape human life to this day. The baby did that, not by being strong, but by being so weak that one person alone could never be enough. And it reached even further, to one of the strangest facts about our species. Human females are one of the very few animals that live for decades after they can no longer have children. Why would evolution keep someone alive long past their reproductive years? One powerful answer is called the grandmother hypothesis, and it points straight back to our helpless babies. A grandmother, freed from having her own infants, becomes an extra pair of experienced, devoted hands, gathering food and helping to raise her grandchildren. The families with grandmothers raised more children successfully, so our helpless babies may be a big part of the reason grandmothers exist at all. The uselessness of the infant helped write the entire shape of the human lifespan. Put it all together and you arrive at something profound. Humans are what scientists call cooperative breeders. We raise our children as a group. Mothers, fathers, grandmothers, aunts, uncles, older siblings, the whole web of people around a child all pitch in, sharing the crushing load of raising a creature that needs years of help. It takes a village is not a sweet saying. It is a hard biological fact about our species, and it was forced into being by the most helpless baby in the animal kingdom. Our weakness at birth is one of the deepest roots of our strength as a social animal. If this is landing for you, if you are starting to see that helpless little baby completely differently, do me a quick favor and hit the like button. It is genuinely the clearest signal to the algorithm to push this kind of thing to someone else who would love it, and it takes 1 second. Okay. There is one more consequence of all this, and it is one you can still feel every time you are near a newborn. Because a human baby is, in a sense, evicted before it is finished. It spends its first months acting as if it still expects to be inside. It calms to being held tightly, wrapped snugly, the way it was in the womb. It settles to gentle rocking and motion, the way it moved when the mother walked. It soothes to a steady shushing sound, close to the roar of blood it heard for 9 months inside. Some people call these first months the 4th trimester, a stretch of development that in any other animal would still be happening safely inside, but that we, uniquely, have to do out here, in our arms. When a newborn only wants to be held, it is not being difficult. It is asking, quite reasonably, to go back to the only world it has ever known. And now the twist that turns the whole story inside out. The human baby is not useless despite being the smartest animal's child. It is useless precisely because it is the smartest animal's child. The helplessness is not the opposite of our intelligence. It is the price of it and the engine of it. To get a brain that can learn anything, you have to send it out into the world unfinished. And an unfinished brain means a helpless body attached to it. Every useless, floppy, do-nothing newborn is a brain that has been left deliberately open so that it can become absolutely anything. The most helpless creature on Earth grows into the most capable one, and it is not a coincidence, it is cause and effect. And notice that we keep arriving at the same strange, beautiful place. We are the naked ape with no fur to protect us. We are the animal whose birth is so dangerous it nearly kills us. And we are the species whose babies are born so helpless they cannot survive a day alone. 3 apparent weaknesses, and every single one turns out to be a hidden strength. And every single one pushed us toward the same 2 things, a bigger brain and each other. That is the real human story. We did not conquer the world by being tough. We conquered it by being smart and by never having to face it alone. All right, pick a side for the comments. Team Flaw says the helplessness is basically just an unavoidable side effect, the unfortunate price we pay for cramming a big head through a narrow birth canal, and nothing more. Team Feature says no. Being born helpless with an open brain is the whole point, the deliberate secret of human learning, and we would keep it even if we could birth a bigger baby. Which one is closer to the truth? Pick a side, tell me why, and go argue about it below. I will pin the best answer from each camp. So the next time you see a newborn, tiny and floppy and utterly useless, unable to do a single thing for itself, try to see what is actually happening in there. That is not a broken little animal. That is the most sophisticated learning machine in the known universe, freshly arrived, wide open, and already beginning to download an entire world. The staring, the crying, the total helplessness. That is what the start of a human mind looks like. It looks like nothing. And it is the most powerful nothing in all of nature. And that was you. Every skill you have, every word you speak, every thought in your head right now, you did not arrive with any of it. You were, at the start, the single most helpless large animal alive, unable to lift your own head, kept alive entirely by people who could not put you down. And that total, absolute helplessness is the exact reason you can read these words, and picture the past, and imagine a future, and understand your own strange beginning. You were useless. and it is the best thing that ever happened to you. So go and find out how old you were when you took your first steps, and drop it in the comments next to everyone else's. A whole thread of people remembering the years they spent as the most helpless creatures on Earth before they became who they are. If you made it all the way here, thank you, genuinely. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me your team, flaw or feature. Because there is one more thing about you that no other animal on Earth shares, something you are doing with your eyes at this very moment that quietly gives away your every thought. Why do humans have whites in their eyes? That is the next video. I will see you there.